I thank the Programme Chair for giving me time at this session to make some concluding remarks rather than waiting for this afternoon. I'm afraid that the work of COL marches on, and tomorrow I must attend the formal launch in the presence of the Princess Royal of the new University of Seychelles. COL is very pleased to have played a role in the planning of the new university and building a strong relationship with Seychelles. The then Minister of Education of Seychelles, Danny Faure, who is now the Vice President of the country, played a key role in initiating the virtual university for small states of the Commonwealth. Seychelles is also a partner in the Col and Hewlett Foundation 6-country project to transform the complete upper secondary curriculum into open educational resources. And finally, those who hadn't met my colleague John L'Espérance will see him on the stage now. He is facilitating the work of the Virtual University for Small States of the Commonwealth. For all these reasons, I hope you'll understand why I shall leave after lunch for the launch ceremony in Seychelles tomorrow, and I ask for your forbearance. In the next few minutes, I want to share my impressions of the conference. And I've called this short intervention, Access and Success in Learning, Your Conclusions. I say your conclusions because although I have not spoken to all of you, I have canvassed my COL colleagues, especially the 4 theme leaders. They are all sensitive and objective people, and I hope that their impressions broadly correspond to your impressions. And I've encapsulated some of my own thoughts about the conference in my daily blog. For one of those blogs, I borrowed Amartya Sen's title, The Argumentative Indian. One of the reasons that India is such a great venue for a conference is that Indians like to argue and disagree. The discussions at many of our sessions were much more robust than if it had been hosted by a more bland and respectful culture. 100 of those argumentative Indians are from our partner IGNOU, and in the belief that healthy debate leads to the truth, I have used press interviews and blogs to urge them to even greater efforts. We have had 4 themes. Let me take them one by one, starting with skills development. Skills development is the next frontier of ODL. ODL is gaining increasing recognition as a way of increasing access to technical and vocational development and the quality of that development. And this is particularly true for the large numbers of people who seek non-formal skills development, often for work in the informal economy, which accounts for most work and self-employment opportunities in many countries. The main obstacle to expansion is the need to train teachers in the use of ICTs for vocational teaching and learning. And this means that collaboration between institutions and development partners is vital for the optimal use of resources. And one clear aim of that collaboration should be the creation, adaptation, and use of open educational resources. Under the theme of social justice, you stressed that if it is to contribute to development, ODL must be placed within an existing development strategy involving participatory processes with stakeholders. This means including a social auditing of learning systems and materials in terms of gender, class, and environment. You also noted that mobile phones and ICTs are not just delivery mechanisms for learning materials. They can play a major role in facilitating a participatory process to contextualize learning and interactive learning. You noted a strong move towards mobile technologies and asked for more case studies about their appropriate use in learning for development. It's time to put more stress on pedagogy and development and less on the technology per se. In discussing formal education, you place strong emphasis on quality assurance again, noting first that quality assurance in higher education will only be significant if well integrated to that taking place at the secondary level. The virtual university for small states of the Commonwealth is an important laboratory for the use of technology in formal education. And you stressed how the VUSC had allowed for the local ownership of programs emanating from a Commonwealth community engaged in developing and delivering courses relevant to small states. Collaborative capacity building has been an essential foundation to that work, and the VUSC Transnational Qualifications Framework is proving to be a point of reference for establishing national qualifications framework, because you insisted strongly on the need for accreditation and quality assurance in programs involving the small states particularly. You believe that open schooling will develop strongly in the coming years, with a particular focus on professional and vocational education. It will be important to integrate this development with the more academic curriculum. And expanding research in open schooling is vital in order to convince policymakers and international organizations of its efficacy. In teacher education, you stressed the importance of the focus on the classroom, the potential of mobile technologies, and the absolute importance, once again, of focusing on quality rather than access numbers. It was a common refrain throughout the conference that technology is not an end in itself. Some suggested that e-learning should be viewed as an umbrella term for a quality improvement strategy, that ICT should be used to innovate in the ways we teach and expect students to learn, and particularly to support greater interaction and communication in learning. Regarding community development, you added dialogue to the key concept of participation by all members of the community in all steps of the process. In this context, some recalled Paulo Freire's words that, quote, "without dialogue there is no communication, and without communication there can be no true education." In this context, you urged that we emphasize community processes, such as sharing stories and experience, as a way to ground community learning products. Educational institutions do not have a monopoly on learning. They need to adopt models that privilege communication through exchange, dialogue and partnership, and get over top-down approaches to community development. Finally, the community development theme also stressed that we must focus less on technology and more on how these innovations are used. How do they facilitate or disable participation, learning, and action? You noted in this context the increasing appreciation of the role of community radio and the important task of ensuring that community radio really is an expression of the community. Those, colleagues, very briefly, are the impressions that I have gathered from the conference with the help of my colleagues. Let me now express my thanks briefly to those who have pulled this conference together, and our Chair and Vice President, Mr. Bertrand Whiteman, and Professor Asha Kanwar will complete these brief, but in my case very sincere acknowledgements this afternoon. We are most grateful to our partners at IGNOU for the intensity of their involvement in the conference. I believe that 100 IGNOU colleagues have been here with us at Kochi, and they have certainly made an active contribution to the sessions, both as paper presenters and discussants. It is not easy for partners to put together a conference program when there is a 10.5-hour time difference between their working days. Cole thanks Professor Ramanujan for his dedication to the task and his most articulate contributions to the plenary session. And behind him is a large number of IGNOU colleagues, and we are most grateful for their input in reviewing papers. Thank you. IGNOU is a huge organization, and having myself led another open university that seemed large but was only 1/10 of the size, I greatly admire the way that Vice Chancellor Professor Pillai has been able to devote so much time to PCF 6. It gives us special pleasure that he brought the conference to his home city of Kochi. The diversity of IGNOU's activities is breathtaking, and my comments that were reported in the press about the difficulty of running both elements of a dual mode program well were not meant as a criticism of using face-to-face methods in postgraduate research programs and in-company training. I asked Professor Pillai to pass on our thanks to all his colleagues, both in Delhi and in IGNOU's local centres, who have contributed so much to the lively atmosphere at PCF 6. But finally, I must above all thank you, the delegates, for your patience, good humour, and very active participation. A moment ago, I reported your conclusion that good ODL involves participatory processes. On behalf of Cole, I thank you for the flexibility and the spirit of collaboration that you showed in compensating for the weaknesses of the printed program by standing in for no-shows and creating the sessions that you wanted. We often talk rather casually about the ODL community, but on the evidence of the last few days, this really is a community and one that practices what it preaches. So thank you very much for being such an understanding and active group. I end by looking forward. We must now think about PCF 7, and I invite expressions of interest for hosting the next of these Pan-Commonwealth forums. We will send out a formal call for proposals very shortly, but I encourage informal dialogue with those organizations that might be interested. And I recall that previous PCFs have been held in Brunei, South Africa, New Zealand, Jamaica, the United Kingdom, and of course, here in India. So, Cole looks forward to seeing many of you at that event. Meanwhile, I wish you safe travels from Kochi, and I hope that the insights you have gained by sharing experience here will be useful to you in your work in open learning, wherever that may take place. Thank you very much.
I am attending the Pan-Commonwealth Forum for the first time. I have not attended it so far. So this is, I have seen that this is a very commendable initiative by the Commonwealth of Learning, giving an opportunity for people from all walks of life, not just from the universities or colleges or open schools or open universities, from all walks of life. And this, the structuring of the Pan Commonwealth Forum is also really commendable. So we get lot of, of course we receive lot of inputs from the Commonwealth of Learning, and I understand that during the last 5 days, the dialogues and discussions which were happening, that will give us a lot of opportunities for quality interventions in our own practices, whether it be in the open university system or in the conventional university system where the dual mode of learning is there, or in the agricultural practices which the ordinary the farmers are doing, whether it be in gender development, whether it be in social justice, whether it be open schooling, whether it be in technology enabled learning, we could network and we could share our experiences. And from many of these conferences, what we achieve is not just, we are not going to learn everything thorough, but we would like to, we will get an opportunity to know what is happening in other countries, what is happening in other universities, how these things can be contextualized. And Commonwealth of Learning is also taking a very flexible attitude that they are giving a general overall framework of quality practices in open and distance learning, and then try to encourage the practitioners to follow these things. And I take this opportunity to once again thank you all for the participation in this PCF 6. I take this opportunity to appreciate and thank the President of the Commonwealth, Sir John Daniel, and Vice President Professor Asha Kanwar, and Bershel Whiteman, who is not here, probably he may join us. You could have come. So, and then the Board of Governors of the Commonwealth of Learning, my own colleagues in the university who are, including Professor Ramanujan and all the organizing committee members, and the various chairs of the different sessions, and the participants, paper presenters and all that. For example, to coordinate an activity of this kind for the last 2 years, it has been decided almost 2 years ago. It was 2 years networking with Commonwealth of Learning from Vancouver, and then Indira Gandhi National Open University, and networking with each and every one of you. It's a real Herculean task. I think let me congratulate and appreciate the efforts taken by the entire Commonwealth of Learning, Professor Ramanujan, and all the colleagues for this wonderful coordination. I also take this opportunity to thank the board of members of the Board of Management of Indira Gandhi National Open University. They have many of them. They were here during these days. They also wanted to have a feel of how these things happened. And then in this conference, I do not know, in all the other conferences also it was like that, almost all the vice chancellors of the state open universities in this country, I think all except one, all the vice chancellors of the state open universities in this country participated. As chairman of the Distance Education Council, I consider it a great opportunity for them. I see Professor Purushottam Rao and several others are there. And then, in addition to the open universities and in the country, large number of participants from conventional universities where distance education institutes are functioning. Of course, the Distance Education Council encouraged them to participate in this. We have 150 distance education institutes outside the open university system in the country, in the conventional universities. And there are also large number of private providers in distance education. I saw representatives of private providers in distance education here. I have seen large number of civil society organizations working at the grassroots, whether it be literacy, digital literacy, agricultural, ODL practice in agriculture, several. So this is a real cross-section of the entire society, looking for opportunities for enhancing the quality of life by providing education and training. And we cannot just say that the priorities of institutions are all the same. Totally different. Priorities may be different. Yesterday we heard Shashi Tharoor saying, even in a country like India, you have taught disparities in education are so huge. He was comparing. Similarly, in the Commonwealth countries also, disparity. He was illustrating, giving very specific examples of African countries, how the disparities are. So this conference gave us an opportunity to showcase some of these success stories and also try to find out what is required to be done, how we can network, how we can share our resources, capabilities, both intellectual and infrastructure capabilities, how technology can be utilized, all these things. And we also deliberated on the aspect of enhancing the access, but at the same time we were more concerned how this access can really lead to success in life in a very way. We discussed the employability, we discussed about the various governmental policies, lot of things. I don't want to make a summary because the usual summing up all these things will be there. From us, the Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, one of the open universities in this Commonwealth, as well as the co-chair of Indira Gandhi National Open University, I thought of just appreciating the efforts. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank the hotel, Le Meridian Hotel management. They have stopped all the activities for the last 1 week. They have stopped all the activities for the last 1 week, and they have supported us in a very big way. They have provided the right kind of ambience. I think I am staying in one place continuously for the last, maybe for 6 days continuously. For the last 3 years, this is for the first time I am staying continuously. The real ambience of this institution. And let me thank the entire management. I don't know whether somebody is here. The entire management of the Le Meridian for providing the facilities. I hope you had we were all very hectic with your own professional activities related to conference. I do not know whether you had a little bit time to see see Kochi and around. Of course, probably you will again come to Cochin or in some other place in Kerala, because now you know that there's a place like this, you will come here again. And we consider it a great opportunity that we got, Indira Gandhi National Open University got the opportunity to host this very important event, which will enhance the status of open and distance learning in the whole world. Thank you very much.
Let me use this opportunity to thank our hosts, the Indira Gandhi National Open University, for being such wonderful partners. This has been, by all accounts, a very, very successful conference. And we are very privileged to have as our partners the largest university in the Commonwealth, which is IGNOU. And we really are very grateful to Professor Swaminathan, who chaired the whole conference, Professor Pillai, the Vice Chancellor, who was the co-chair with our own President, Sir John Daniel. And we are very grateful to all of you for coming to this conference and making it such a success. And if I was to, since I have been asked to make some remarks, I may as well make some remarks in a historical context in terms of where have we come from the first Pan-Commonwealth. For Professor Pillai, this was his first PCF. For me, this is my fourth. And we've had 6 PCFs in all, starting in 1999. So what is it that we've actually seen that has changed over these last 11 years, from 1999 to 2010? And I think I'll just highlight 3 major changes which have taken place. In the first PCF in 1999, at that time, there was a lot of pressure on CALL and the World Bank to develop courses and to make those courses available to institutions in the developing world. Now, this was a very top-down approach, and at that time, there was a paucity of courses. Today, there is over 1 trillion pages on the web, and we now live in the world of OERs. So actually, the whole emphasis has shifted at that time for organizations like CALL to develop courses to now in 2010, when in such a short time there has been such a paradigm shift. You know, Thomas Kuhn said that a paradigm shifts in 100 years or more. Now paradigms are shifting in every 10 years. And so what we have now is a complete shift, and we are now dependent on OERs. And then we are also noticing that from a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up. It's the people who are actually deciding what kind of the consumers have become the producers of content. So that is one major shift which I noticed in the last 11 years. The second shift is that when we started the PCFs, there was this great breastbeating about, you know, digital divide, poor developing countries. We are on this side of the digital divide. I haven't heard that expression used even once here. I don't know if it happened in any of the sessions, but in general, there is much less emphasis on the digital divide, because the digital divide has, in any case, at that time was being, determined on the basis of whether you had computers or not. In fact, even Bill Gates said that 2 billion of the world's poor people, that is 1/3 of the world's poor people, will not have access to computers. So what has changed? It's not computers which have actually crossed the digital divide, it's mobile technology, community radios. Older technologies are coming back in a big way, and that can be exemplified even from the Government of India's policy that in the next 3 years there'll be about 4,000 licenses offered to community radios in this country, whereas at this moment there are about only 98 such centers. So I think the second is that we've managed to cross the digital divide, and the emphasis is now much more on, not so much on technology, but on the learner. The divide is not between the one technology and the other. The divide is between the institution and the learner. So I think that's the divide we have to cover, whether the learner is at the center of our attention, whether the learner is part of the community, whether the learner is on the margin. How can technology be used to bridge that divide between the institution and the learner? So this is the second thing which I think there is a major change. The third is that even in 2002, when we had the Pan Commonwealth Forum in Durban, we were talking about development, How do we actually, because 2000, when the international global community got together and set up the 8 Millennium Development Goals, at that time we were beginning to talk about, how can we use ODL for development in 2002. It was just a discussion which was beginning, because ODL was still being used primarily for higher education or education at the tertiary level. But in this conference, the major change which I've noticed is that there's so much kind of, dynamism around skills development, which is not necessarily in the tertiary sector, open schooling, healthy communities, lifelong learning for farmers. And in one of our keynotes, we had a very fascinating discussion of, of the Mandeshi Udyogini, how actually the people are determining what is going to be the future definition of a university. We all know what a definition of a university is. But I think all these things are going to be overturned, and as the technology develops, I think the time span for paradigms to shift will become even smaller, and there will be, changes faster than we can even anticipate. And I think on that note, let me stop here and say thank you very much, and thanks to the Vice Chancellor, thanks to Ramanujam, thanks to the Secretariat team, and thanks to all of you.